And it was very shocking to me because it was like Native organizations were like, no, you can't have that here. Anyway, so I was directed to a church downtown Billings. It was a first congregational church. Walked in there and they're like, I gave him my spiel and Reverend Wellbriety was like, yeah, for sure, man, when do you want to start? And I was just like, what? And so anyway, he became my spiritual sponsor. He's like, hey, let's meet every week and let's talk. And it was just like visiting and stuff. But at the end of each session, he would say, as I left, he would say, speak well of yourself to yourself. And, initially, I'm only like 6 months, 7 months walking on the red road, and I'm like, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever, he's saying he's trying to be spiritual, it sounds healthy, That's how I thought. I was just kind of like, all right, yeah, cool, man, we'll see you next week. And I head out, and he just kept saying it. He just kept saying it. And finally, one day, I was like, I stopped as I was walking out the door. He said it. He said, speak well of yourself to yourself. And I stopped and I turned around and I said, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? I don't know what that means. You keep saying it. I don't know what you mean. And so he said, pay attention to that voice on the inside. What are you saying about yourself to yourself? What are you thinking about yourself? And so I started paying attention to that voice. And what I found out was that I hated myself. I hated myself. And then I started to see, like prior to the Red Road, prior to recovery, prior to Wellbriety, I was a very hateful person. I was racist against whites, blacks, everybody, even my own people. And as I started working on myself in that realm, started looking at that, I didn't hate those people. I hated myself. And so, as I started practicing speaking well myself to myself, it was weird. For like the first time in my 32 years of living, I was actually being positive up here. I was actually saying, I started doing positive affirmations. You're good enough, you're worthy. Looking in the mirror and telling myself, I love you. And then busting out laughing because it was weird. And I started doing those things as I, started progressing on the red road. And then, just like one day, I don't know how long, maybe like between years 1 and 2 of walking the red road, I just looked up and I seen people. Like it didn't matter the shade of their skin, how light they were, how dark they were. I just seen people. And I was able to just meet them where they're at. And if they sought advice, hopefully point them in the right direction. And then that's when I was able to, I had to be kind to myself first. I had to start loving myself first. Because it took a while. It took a couple years because I hated myself. And I still struggle with the defeating belief that I'm not good enough. Something happened when I was a kid, and that thought was planted, that seed was planted, and as things progress, that just kept reinforcing that for 32 years. 10 years walking the red road, I still struggle with that piece that I'm not good enough. And so these positive affirmations that I am worthy, I am good enough, like I'm good enough to be on this panel. I had to tell myself that. Like, I'm good enough to wear these clothes. I'm good enough to wear these shoes. I'm good enough to have the job that I have. I'm good enough to be a dad to my kids. You know, I have to tell myself these things just because of that defeating belief is so strong. But that's where it had to start for me. And as I started being kind to myself, and I started loving myself, I started liking myself, I started getting used to being in my own skin. Then I was able to love my neighbor. You know, now I'm able to, like I said, I don't have that hate that used to be in my heart for someone that just was a different shade. Their skin was a different shade than mine. That hate isn't there anymore. And I'm relieved, because having all that hate in your heart is taxing. There's a lot of upkeep, but to love, just love people in general, having empathy, and meeting people where they're at, you know, it's a beautiful thing. I get to do these things now. And as I move forward, you know, a lot like the teaching, you know, that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. As I move forward in the Red Road, you know, Creator, we said Badatia or Egypt Badish brings people into your life, you know, and they come and walk alongside you. They might come bring a lesson, or they might come with support, or they might just come, you know, just to love on you. And, you know, that's a like byproduct of me keeping my side of the street clean, me being kind to myself, me loving myself, and all these things are happening. And it's just like, you know, to me, it's a beautiful thing, you know, and it all started to, and I'll close with this. When I checked into detox September 9th, 2015, I was, you know, like 450 pounds. Like my hands were, I was so swollen, like I couldn't bend my fingers past that. I looked like my fingers were gonna pop, explode. And as I laid there that first night in detox, like I was so tired, I just wanted to go to sleep. But I was scared to go to sleep because I heard about people dying from DTs, withdrawals from alcohol. And I still had alcohol in my system, so they couldn't give me any chill pills at the detox. So I was just laying there, I was just cold sweats. And, the rehabilitation tech at the detox facility, he must have been watching me on the camera or something, because he came in, he just sat at the foot of my bed, and he told me his story. He told me his story, and he told me, like, just this simple life that goes to work, hits a meeting, gets some food, goes home, spends time with his family, and he does it again the next day. And man, I wanted that. It's, man, as I laid there, he was just telling me about his life. I wanted that so bad. And I also, I wanted to do what he was doing. He was helping. Timer. I was kidding.
You knew it was coming up. You knew it was coming up.
No, it was, yeah, so I wanted to do that, like what he did. Like he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to come and help me, but he did, and so that's been my mission ever since that night. Is that I want to help. So thank you guys. I hope.
Oh.